Well, here we are in week 6, and I want to thank you all for the depth of your reflections. I'm constantly moved by what you have written, and so I just wanted to say thank you one more time. But I want to make a couple of points about the reflection work and the communication work with our reflections that we're doing in these last few weeks. The first one is when I say vignettes, I really do mean vignettes. And as I put it, perhaps mildly sarcastically in the instructions, I mean vignettes, not sagas. My experience is that the more we can drill down to single scenes, little slices of our experience, and recount them frankly and realistically, the better depth we get into in terms of connecting those stories to traditions, or when we're applying other methods like we are this week, the more juice, frankly, we get out of it. Now, obviously, when you're recounting one of those, you need to give a little bit of background, as some of you have been doing this week already in your reflections. But I hope that you can focus in on a very small scene. Now, let me give you an example of what I mean. A couple of weeks ago at my Bible study, I go to a weekly Bible study lectionary. Actually, by default, I'm leading it right now at the ELCA church near me. And one of the people in the Bible study is a woman with pretty advanced Parkinson's disease, but she's determined to get to Bible study. She has someone to help her do that and to get to church on Sunday. Well, in Bible study a few weeks ago, she wanted to read the lesson. We always read each of the upcoming Sunday lessons and so on. See, this is all the background, right? But here's what I really want to say. She needed somebody to hold the Bible for her closer to her eyes. And I was holding the Bible for her, and I was just tremendously moved. And I've been thinking about that, just that little moment a lot. I probably need to develop a reflection based on that and offer it to all of you. But that's just an example of the kind of thing that I'm talking about when I say a vignette or just a tiny slice of your experience. The other thing I want to clarify is I guess I was really fuzzy in what I said about the category of biblical perspectives, of using scripture a different way as kind of a lens through which we look at an experience, and perhaps through which we could look at almost any experience and develop a meaningful reflection. The thing that got me interested in this initially was some decades ago when the now retired dean of CDSP, Don Morgan, was working with some of us at a summer camp in Nevada. And he talked about the period in time when really when what we think of as the Old Testament or Hebrew scripture was put together. And one of the things that happened was in that time, the post-exilic period, there were really many different trends in the community. And we see those reflected in the Hebrew scripture, particularly in the writings, which is not the law and not the prophets, but the writings. So some of the things he identified was you can see the sages, wisdom literature. You can see the perspective of the community builders, Ezra and Nehemiah. You can see the perspective of the singers and prayers, the Psalms. And in addition to wisdom Psalms, there are many other types of Psalms. Or you can see the perspective of the visionaries. The visionaries would be what we might think of as apocalyptic, parts of Ezekiel and the book of Daniel. So if one were to take one of those perspectives and use it to look at a situation in life now, what would one come up with? I've offered this methodology in the past, but nobody's ever taken me up on it in any of my classes. So therefore, I just extracted a couple of things from that and suggested that a couple of biblical perspectives might be: pretend you are writing a lament psalm about an experience, or pretend that you're writing a wisdom psalm about an experience. That's what I mean by biblical perspective. In the same way, if you look at situations in our faith communities from the perspective of John the Evangelist and his ecclesiology, if I may, or the perspective of St. Paul and his ecclesiology, you're going to come up with some different things. That's what I mean by biblical perspectives. I think many of you have said, oh, biblical perspective. So I'm going to take a vignette from my ministry and I'm going to find a biblical passage that works with that. And that's not what I was talking about. It's a little bit different approach to using scripture. So the reflections that have been posted so far are great, but if you want to use that method in future, you might try to turn our use of scripture a bit on its head and use it as a lens through which to look at our realities. Finally, I want to say something about those of you who are taking this for CEUs or for credit with your diocesan program. And that is that I would like you this week or at the very beginning of next, to contract with me for your final assignment. I want to give you great latitude in your final assignment because I want it to be something that's useful and perhaps even fun for you to do. So what I need to do is to have you email me. You can do this through the course, or you can do it post a message to me through the course, or you can email me using my email address and tell me what method you will use. I'm going to use the action reflection spiral, or I'm going to use the window method that I introduced this week. And then tell me how you're going to communicate what you learned. I'm going to turn this into a couple of paragraphs from my parish newsletter, or I'm going to post you, if you use the window method, a lot of people have used that with visuals. I'm going to give you 4 visuals of what I'm going to describe my little vignette and then give you 4 visuals. So that's all I want. It's just a sentence or two of what you plan to do for your final assignment. Gosh, this is a good course, and your interactions with one another really inspire me. So thank you again, and I will see you next time.